Picture this. You're standing in the frozen wasteland of the Yukon, 150 miles south of the Arctic Circle, staring down at what every miner in the Klondike calls a death trap. The wind cuts through you like a blade, and beneath your feet lies the Widow's Cut. A collapsed mineshaft so dangerous, so utterly unforgiving that seasoned miners cross themselves just hearing its name. Most would walk away, most would call it suicide, but Parker Schnabel isn't most people. What happened next would shake the gold mining world to its core and potentially rewrite the history books of the 21st century. All right, here's the first scoop going in. He's one step closer to finding out if his new operation will secure his mining future. This is the story of how one man's refusal to back down from the impossible led to a discovery worth $75 million and changed everything. In the cutthroat world of Klondike gold mining, there are places that even the bravest miners won't touch. Legends get attached to them, stories of failure and danger that become part of the land itself. The Widow's Cut was exactly that kind of place. A mineshaft so notoriously dangerous that it was considered off-limits. A self-harm mission that no sane person would attempt. But here's the thing about legends. They usually exist for a reason. The belief that this shaft was too deep and too unstable to tackle wasn't just unfounded superstition. This wasn't some old wives' tale whispered around campfires. The dangers were real, immediate, and potentially deadly. First, the cut was completely surrounded by deep permafrost. Now, if you've never dealt with permafrost before, let me paint you a picture. This isn't just frozen dirt we're talking about. This is ground that has been frozen solid, as hard as concrete, for thousands of years. When you reach that point where it never gets above freezing, where you're building ice the whole time, you know you're in for a world of trouble. Any attempt to excavate to dig down into this frozen hell would be incredibly risky. The constant terrifying threat of massive multi-ton chunks of frozen earth and rock suddenly collapsing into any man-made opening is always hanging over your head like a sword of Damocles. One wrong move, one miscalculation, and tons of frozen dirt could come crashing down on whoever was unfortunate enough to be in the shaft. But if that wasn't enough to keep miners away, there was something even worse lurking beneath the surface. The huge, ever-present potential for catastrophic flooding. Any kind of water ingress, whether from melting permafrost or underground springs, had the potential to instantly compromise the stability of the shaft walls. Worse yet, it could flood and destroy millions of dollars worth of heavy mining equipment in minutes. Considering the sheer magnitude of this challenge, it wouldn't have surprised anyone. Not a single viewer of Gold Rush. How do you make that transition, from mining in one place to the next? If Parker and his crew had taken one look at the Widow's Cut and decided that this mine simply wasn't for them. Sure, the legends promised a ton of gold for them to extract down there. But it wasn't worth risking their lives and their entire operation. But here's the crazy part. That's not how Parker Schnabel thinks. In fact, rather than seeing the immense risk, it's almost as though Parker just saw another challenge, another mountain to conquer. Perhaps even more importantly, Parker saw this as a challenge that he was absolutely not going to run away from. They were going to make their way down that shaft one way or another. The crew knew what they were getting into. As the brutal Yukon winter hit the gold fields of the Klondike, they could feel the pressure mounting. Bob's equipment had broken down, a real pain because everything's so far away out there. The logistics alone were nightmarish. They knew they were going to have pipes freezing up constantly. The weather was working against them, and they desperately needed temperatures above 35 degrees for at least 4 hours to have any hope of making progress. But waiting for the weather to turn wasn't an option. Time was money, and in the gold mining business, every day lost to weather, equipment failures, or indecision was money bleeding from their operation. They had set a goal of 5,000 ounces for the season, But now they were talking about upping the ante, getting within striking distance of 7,000 ounces. Something that seemed unbelievable given their circumstances. Faced with an impossible challenge, Parker decided to fight back, not with brute force, but with brains and high-tech eyes in the sky. This move would lead to an unbelievable breakthrough that nobody saw coming. The acceptance of a challenge, however, doesn't make that challenge. So what could? Modern technology. While the old-timers had relied on nothing but picks, shovels, and pure determination, Parker and his crew had a few secret weapons at their disposal. Aside from their usual arsenal of excavators and slewing plants, they had access to high-tech tools to survey the area in ways the old-timers could only have dreamed of. Their state-of-the-art LiDAR system was about to change everything. What nobody talks about is how revolutionary this technology is for miners. LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging for acquiring LiDAR data over broad areas, shoots out millions of laser pulses to create an incredibly detailed three-dimensional map of the ground. It can peer through vegetation, through layers of debris, through decades of accumulated earth and overgrowth to reveal what lies beneath. On top of that, they paired it with advanced drone mapping techniques. Whoever came up with a combination of these tools must be a genius, because this led to a breakthrough that many miners had been trying and failing to achieve since the 1980s. The team's initial plan was straightforward. Dig a completely new way down into the mine, a new ramp or shaft. But with the challenges of the permafrost and the risk of flooding, that approach could prove to be too dangerous, too costly, and too time-consuming. As one crew member noted, it gets pretty dangerous pretty quick. But they do what they can. The more time they spent looking for how to get down there, the more of their precious resources, fuel, wages, time were being burned up on endeavors that didn't actually involve extracting a single ounce of gold. If they didn't want to finish this high-stakes season at a catastrophic loss, they had to make sure they were successful with this gold mining project at the Widow's Cut. And they had to do it fast. This is where the technology paid off in ways nobody expected. The LiDAR and drone data, when stitched together, revealed something incredible, something hidden from plain sight for decades. The lasers had peered through the earth and the overgrowth, revealing a secret that had been lost to time, a hidden path into the heart of the treasure. The breakthrough came in the form of a collapsed vertical shaft, a relic of the original mining operation that had been completely hidden under decades of thick, tangled overgrowth. Their precise measurements told them that although it had been lost to time, the collapsed shaft was more than 40 meters deep. That's over 130 feet straight down into the earth. After some careful examination, the team realized that their best and perhaps only shot was to stabilize this collapsed shaft. It was a terrifying prospect, but thanks to some heavy-duty reinforced steel beams and Parker's expert crew, they were able to create a safe enough pathway to make their way down into the darkness into the heart of the formerly inaccessible mine. You can just imagine how reinvigorated these miners were. After weeks of frustration and staring at an impossible problem, they now had a safe, direct path down to the gold they had been dreaming of. The impossible had suddenly become possible. What they found at the bottom was absolutely breathtaking. It didn't take them long to make their way through to an untouched quartz-rich gold vein that had the potential to give their entire season a much-needed multi-million-dollar boost. The vein was so pure, so pristine that Parker's geologist on site described the work as being in the cleanest and richest natural deposit he had ever seen in his career. Once the team was done admiring the glittering gold vein they had found, they quickly, almost frantically, got to work. The water here in our distribution, it's a lot happier than what it was. After all, they didn't want to waste too much time down there. They knew that other miners in the competitive Klondike could hear whispers of this incredible discovery and decided to get some for themselves by trying to jump their claim. With that driven mindset, the team worked endlessly around the clock. Mike was on the hill working through loads of material, everyone pushing themselves to the absolute limit. This is where it gets absolutely wild. This relentless effort proved to be spectacularly effective. It only took them a little over 72 hours, just 3 days of non-stop grueling work, to extract more than 4,000 ounces of gold from this incredibly rich vein. Let that sink in for a moment. In 3 days, they pulled more gold out of the ground than most miners see in an entire season. This single stunning cleanup proved to be a powerful, almost life-changing experience for the team. After extracting all that gold, they did the math, and the numbers were staggering. It was worth more than $10 million. That one haul would cover all their costs for things like diesel and transportation for most of the season, and then some. One particular cleanup yielded 38.6, worth $66,000, a small fraction of what they were pulling out. The scale of this discovery was unlike anything they had experienced before. After some careful examination of the gold and the geology of the vein, they realized that it was a lot larger, a lot more extensive than they had initially thought. In fact, after some quick calculations based on the vein's thickness and projected length, the team figured that it actually extended another 2 kilometers. That's about 1.4 meters further underground. This is where the numbers get truly insane. After some more calculations, taking into account the richness of the vein and its immense size, the team figured that they could potentially extract another $75 million from this single gold vein. $75 million from one vein in one location that everyone else had written off as impossible to mine. If they could pull this off, if they could actually extract that much gold, this would be incredible news for Parker and his team. This could mean that the team was going to have not just a successful season, but the most successful season in Gold Rush history. They were no longer just trying to hit their 5,000-ounce goal. They were talking about numbers that could redefine what was possible in modern gold mining. So now I'm going to try to go a bit wider if I can. Word got out fast, almost too fast. The moment news of Parker's amazing gold strike spread, the entire Klondike seemed to know. Other miners, crews, and even government inspectors were buzzing with excitement. Everyone wanted to see it. Everyone wanted to know what Parker had found. But Parker was ready. He had already made sure that the claim was fully legal and locked down. The land was his and his alone. No one else was getting a piece of it. Not now, not ever. And for good reason. This could be the gold find that changed everything. People all over the Yukon were watching. And not just watching, they were talking. Whispers started flying through mining camps and supply towns. Was this really the biggest gold strike of the 21st century? Had Parker just rewritten the rules of the game? More questions were coming fast. Would this huge strike give Parker even more power in the mining world? Would jealous crews try to sneak in and take part of the land? Could he even handle the pressure of a site this massive? This wasn't just gold anymore. This was a shift in power. This was history in the making. With Parker needing only 174 ounces to hit his 7,000-ounce season goal, but with the money pit paying out big gold that could deliver much more, the weight on his shoulders suddenly doubled. With more money and more attention came more pressure. Everyone was looking at him now. Could he lead his team through the storm of fame, greed, and massive expectations? Or would things start to fall apart under the intense scrutiny? One thing was clear. This discovery would affect more than just Parker's crew. It could change everything in the Klondike. Prices could go up. Land could become more expensive. More miners might move in, hoping to find their own jackpot. It was like throwing a rock into a still lake. The ripples were going to spread far and wide. But Parker wasn't scared. He was focused. This was the moment he had been working toward for years, and he wasn't going to let it slip away. He knew what it took to survive in the Yukon. He had seen bad seasons, fought through equipment breakdowns, rough terrain, and bitter cold. But this was different. This was a chance to become something more than just another successful miner. This was a chance to become a legend. Some say Parker just got lucky. Others believe it was all instinct, that sixth sense that separates the great miners from the merely good ones. But no matter how it happened, one thing is certain. Parker Schnabel just made his mark in gold mining history. The combination of cutting-edge technology, unwavering determination, and the courage to tackle what everyone else considered impossible had paid off in spectacular fashion. Where others saw a death trap, Parker saw opportunity. Where others saw insurmountable obstacles, Parker saw a challenge worth accepting. The king of the Klondike had spoken and the world was listening. Parker Schnabel's $75 million gamble had paid off, turning a geological death trap into a legendary jackpot that would be talked about for generations. But with a discovery this big, with stakes this high, and with this much money on the line, one question remains. Has Parker's incredible success just invited a new kind of danger? Only time will tell if this massive windfall will prove to be a blessing or a curse in the unforgiving world of Klondike gold mining. What's certain is that the widow's cut, once considered untouchable, will never be the same, and neither will Parker Schnabel.